Numerous businesses around the world have filed for bankruptcy, one after another, as a result of the COVID-19 outbreak. This is primarily accurate for the travel, retail, and other consumer businesses. However, one industry, notably in Southeast Asia, has benefited from it. One company stands out as having experienced one of the quickest rates of growth over the past years. This is the Sea Group, a major Singapore-based e-commerce and technology company. Even though you may not be familiar with this business, it is actually more closer to you than you might realize. Have you heard of Garena or Shoppee? They are all a part of this single tech corporation, which began as a video game distributor, grow to become one of the world's largest tech corporations? To comprehend this triumph, we must first get to know Forrest Li, the man responsible for it. Li was born in 1977 in Tianjin, China. Even after earning an engineering degree from Shanghai Jiaotong University, Li grew up playing video games and working as a Motorola recruiter. He spent the majority of his days playing video games in internet cafes. But, over the course of his time at Motorola, he began to find it tedious, and nothing seemed exciting. He eventually resigned from his position and went on to pursue a master's degree in business administration from Stanford University. There, he met two people, his future wife, Li Qianma. After graduating from Stanford University, he and his wife flew to Singapore. This time, however, he was on a difficult path. Because of his over $100,000 in debt, he could barely afford a room for the first few years of his stay in Singapore. He worked in business, but his true calling is somewhere else. He eventually quit his job and started his own business in 2009. Every Southeast Asian child who grew up playing online games in the 2010s and beyond was raised with this corporation, which was a driving force behind the global expansion of popular games. Li started it all in a small office, and Garena quickly became a huge success. It has released games under a variety of names over the years, including Warcraft and League of Legends. Li and his associates did not stop at being distributors. They put in a lot of time and effort to create their own games. The biggest internet company in Singapore was Garena, with a value of over $1 billion in 2014 and over $2.5 billion the following year. Li had thought of yet another original idea. One of the largest e-commerce platforms in all of Southeast Asia would eventually become Shoppee. It first began as a consumer-to-consumer marketplace, which many Southeast Asian homes that were previously using other apps were able to use. There were many names mentioned, such as Lazada, Tokopedia, and others. By 2017, Shoppee and Garena had both grown quickly, and Sea Group was brought in to act as a holding company for the two different business sectors. His team needed to raise a sizable sum of money in order to maintain its rapid expansion in Southeast Asia. They were successful in raising $550 million on May 8 to expand their retail activities, mostly in Indonesia. Additionally, this led Tencent, a significant Chinese conglomerate, to purchase 40% of the company. It was eventually sold to the general public, but a sizable 21%, valued at $38 billion, is still held today. Only a few months after obtaining $500 million, the management of Sea finally saw the need for additional funds and expansion. They eventually submitted a registration form for an IPO at the New York Stock Exchange. They eventually raised $884 million in cash by selling 59 million shares at $15 each. Its shares increased 13% on the first day of trade, giving the business a valuation of $5.3 billion. This led to a huge success for the business and its home nation. With enormous sums of money in their inventory, they can continue to grow indefinitely into neighboring nations. First, though Garena released a number of games, Free Fire was the most notable, which quickly achieved enormous success and, in 2019, became the most downloaded smartphone game worldwide. Hundreds of millions of players play Free Fire today, and the game even sponsors million-dollar competitions. The business stated that their game revenue quadrupled in the first quarter of 2021. which outperformed previous significant international games. It eventually passed the 1 billion download mark on Google's Play Store in August 2021. The brand Lazada.com, which is supported by China's Alibaba Group, was surpassed by Shoppee, which also experienced rapid growth to become the largest e-commerce platform in Southeast Asia. As we've already mentioned, the corporation alone employs approximately 20,000 people. Initially a consumer-to-consumer firm, they later transformed to become a hybrid business-to-consumer. Shoppee's presence in Southeast Asia has continued to expand when compared to its rivals and taken into account their humble beginnings. Unfortunately, it appears that Lee has his sights set on more than just Southeast Asia. He raised over $1.5 billion in a secondary public offering in 2019, segmenting his way to a more global expansion. Shoppee now has operations not only in his home country, but also in other countries such as America, Brazil, and Mexico. However, the effects of the lockdown and the rise of e-commerce platforms at the beginning of 2020 were ultimately responsible for the greatest growth in the C Group. Forward to 2021, when the company is worth more than $176 billion and trading at $319 per share. In 2016, the company was valued at around $40 per share, or about $10 billion in total. Forrest Lee is one of Southeast Asia's wealthiest men, with a net worth of more than $16 billion. He did not, however, reap the benefits of his success alone. He was joined by two other co-founders, two people by the names of Gang Yi and David Chin, who later both became billionaires as well. Furthermore, they have a gross merchandise value of around $15 billion. Overall income is expected to rise from $4.3 billion in 2020 to over $17.3 billion by 2023, which nearly quadrupled in a short period of time. Nonetheless, given the rising interest rate and inflationary environment, this dream appears a little overly ambitious. Anyway, let us know what you think of the C Group in the comments. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and stay tuned for more incredible videos. This is Visionomics, and thank you for watching until the end.